What is one economic trend to watch in 2020, and specifically, what effect will it have here in Iowa?
Well, Chris, first and foremost, thanks for having me today, and it's an honor to be on this panel. So I'll just start off, since you're giving me the microphone first, that during my partnership, we are expecting a very positive economic outlook for 2020 for the DSM USA region. In 2019 was a very strong year for our region and for us as an organization with projects, and our queue for 2020 is looking solid as well. So that's usually a pretty good indicator of how well the economy is doing, and we're very excited about what we're going to be working on in 2020. For the overall trend, I guess to watch is that Greater Des Moines DSM USA will continue to fight above our weight class. If you've looked at some key indicators over the past decade, when you compare us to our larger regional metros, so Omaha, Kansas City, St. Louis, Chicago, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, St. Paul, we have outperformed all of them over the last decade, since 2010 collectively, in percentage of population growth, percentage of GDP growth, and percentage of employment growth. So we'll continue to watch those trends, and our projection is that we'll continue to fight above our weight class. And we see some specific examples within industries that are very exciting, within specifically logistics. There are a lot of projects that are currently underway with warehousing and fulfillment centers. I think especially something to watch is the impact the new transload facility is going to have in terms of our ability to be able to ship via rail more effectively than we've had in the past. So very excited about that. The insurance and financial industry continues to look strong here. We've had a lot of great projects and deals, and looking for some more this year as well too. And you put that on top of what this region has done in terms of positioning ourselves for the future with insurance innovation and fintech, with things like the Global Insurance Accelerator, the Global Insurance Symposium, and now the new Broker Tech Ventures really being on the cutting edge of insurance and financial services. We expect that trend to continue as well. Then specifically, you mentioned ag. I think there's an opportunity for the ag sector to improve this year. And again, I think that, Chris, you mentioned correctly that a lot's going to depend on the impact of what the first phase of the China trade agreement actually looks like. There's a lot of promises, but not really sure what that ends up looking like. And the USMCA trade agreement is very promising as well, as long and moving forward from Brexit and Japan as well. Very heavily reliant on exports. So we're excited about that as well. And then also within the ag space, the Iowa Agritech Accelerator, now the new Cultivo initiative with Cultivation Corridor, I think again really trying to put us on the leading edge of what ag tech can look like and really drive that future. So a lot of exciting things. At the same time, major investments in quality of life investments like the water trails and a soccer stadium, lots of other things, a new airport coming down the road. Just a lot of exciting things happening. So again, we're excited for 2020 and look forward to help making it happen. So thanks for having us.
Darrell, why don't you go ahead and take the next shot? Over.
Hopefully nobody got shot in the back.
Yeah.
Is my mic on? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be back in the state of Iowa. I originally reside from New York City, so it's a good chance to fly in last night, get a little snow, a little cold, and enjoy my roots and heritage of Iowa. So glad to be back. I'll probably take a little bit more of a national look. We actually expect 2020 to be a good year. We think the U.S. will grow at about 2.1% GDP growth, and the global economy will grow around 3%. The challenge, we think, for the economy in the 11th year of recovery is, as everyone knows, it's the longest recovery but the slowest recovery on record. Now that can actually paint a bullish scenario for the extension of the recovery, in the sense that if you look at the aggregate GDP growth in the U.S. of this recovery, it's only about 50 to 60% of all the post-World War II recoveries. So you can make a case that there's a lot more gas in the tank left, just simply because of that slowness of the recovery, so much anemic growth rates that we've had through this entire cycle. We do think interest rates and inflation stay low, which is healthy for the economy. We see the 10-year Treasury yield at 175 at year-end, and the 30-year at 225. So Chris mentioned that flat to inverted curve. We think we're going to be dealing with that for much of this year. The consumer remains really healthy, albeit manufacturing has been, you could argue, in a recession unto itself for all of 2019. If you look at any of the recession indicators, manufacturing indicators like Purchasing Managers Index, ISM, we saw durable goods yesterday, all are suggesting contraction in the manufacturing space. And the U.S. economy is about 70% consumer. The consumer just continues to chug along. Consumer spending is strong. The consumer confidence number was the best number we've seen literally since the year 2000, yesterday. So the consumer still kind of sheds off all of these issues around the U.S. and Iran, around the coronavirus, any of these types of things. Specifically to Iowa, it would be nice, we actually are more optimistic. We've got a team that looks specifically at the state of Iowa in our economics group. We think it's a better year for Iowa economically. As you know, the state is highly indexed towards agricultural, manufacturing, and as Jay alluded to, financial and insurance. Just a statement about each of those. Certainly the phase one China trade deal, if China follows through and purchases $40 billion of agricultural commodities over the next 2 years, that will exceed by far the high water mark in 2017 of $23 billion. So even if they fall short of 40, anywhere north of 23 is a positive for the U.S. or for the Iowa economy. Manufacturing, I alluded to before, was kind of in a recession for much of 19 and 18. We actually see green shoots starting to turn the corner and come out of that, which should benefit Iowa's economy as a whole, we think, if manufacturing is a little bit of a resurgence. And the last point I would just make on the financial and insurance sector, obviously some binary outcomes there as it relates specifically to the election and what happens in November. Financial and insurance sectors are under heavy scrutiny by, depending on the parties you would look at. But we actually think it's one of the best, highest conviction ideas we have in the financial space for 2020. We like the balance sheets. They're the highest returners of capital to shareholders. We think in a lot of ways financials, and I'll be careful how I say this, but financials look to us a lot today like tech looked in 2010, as far as being really financially healthy with some good upside to them. If that happens in 2020 or 2021 and beyond, that would be exceedingly good, obviously, for the state's economy. Chris?
Kathy?
Okay, hello. I'm going to start with just a little foundation setting because I do not have a background in economics or anything like that. I'm here on behalf of Future Ready Iowa. And so I want to take a minute to just tell you about that because I do believe there are people, and even though we've tried really hard, who don't know what Future Ready Iowa is. And so I'm going to start there and give you a little information, and then my perspective will be shared from the Future Ready Iowa perspective. So this is our state's initiative to have all Iowans in the workforce have education and training beyond high school by 2025. Not all Iowans, but 70%. That's the goal. And why is that? Because of a few things. 68% of the jobs will require education and training beyond high school by 2025. Also, every year, Iowa Workforce Development is where I work. When we survey employers, they tell us 50% or more that they have people who apply for jobs. Those people don't have the skills they need. So we're really needing to correct that skills gap in Iowa. And then additionally, we have a huge skills gap. 53% of our jobs approximately in Iowa require education and training up to an associate's degree. So that's a certificate, a diploma, an associate's, a bachelor's. We have a registered apprenticeship, and we have all of these great opportunities, but we only have about 34% of our Iowans who have that training, and so therein lies a huge gap. And these all affect our ability to be on the front edge of our economy and innovators, because if we don't have the workforce that we need, then that will stifle us. And I know right now we have employers who are, they don't have enough workers to keep up with what they do need to do, and they are turning down opportunities to grow because of that. So this is the focus of Future Ready Iowa, and the perspective that I'll try and bring for everyone.
Get my own, thanks.
Okay.
Thanks everybody for being here today. Thanks to the Business Record for having us. Again, my name is Joe Murphy. I'm with the Iowa Business Council. Business Council, for those of you who don't know, we represent the 23 of the largest employers in the state of Iowa. Collectively, we have about 150,000 people working throughout our companies. We have about $7 billion in payroll, tens of millions of dollars in charitable contributions throughout the state, and we really come at issues from a nonpartisan perspective, and so really trying to outlay the facts and figures as we see them to try to make the best case for business, which then of course entails good things, jobs and opportunities for Iowans. You know, as we enter 2020, we agree with Jay and Darrell and others that the outlook looks quite well. The Iowa Business Council released our year-end quarterly survey just a few weeks ago, and all indications is that we'll continue to remain positive. Some people were a little surprised by that. We didn't have trade deals totally finalized by the end of that point. But our members have seen a very aggressive growth in sales. We're excited about job opportunities and further business expansion and investment. And that's something that's really key, I think, to the outlook of business leaders that we work with, and certainly throughout the local communities as well. Sometimes we kind of get into this habit or this thought process of talking ourselves into the recession, but as we look at the data, we just don't really see that. We see sales are strong, we see expansion as being strong, and so as we look into different trends, one of the things we'll be looking at will be to see how these trade deals impact business decisions, whether that means more mergers and acquisitions, whether that means other expansion. And I think at the bottom, at the end of the day, we're really looking forward to working with policymakers, arming them with the data that makes the most sense to help them expand policy sets that really create opportunities for Iowans so that we can all lift ourselves up and continue to get ready for the great jobs of the future that Kathy's going to be providing for us. So appreciate your time today. Look forward to the questions.
Tom?
Well, hi everybody, and thanks for coming out today, and thanks Chris for inviting us. When I think about 2020 and beyond, I'm optimistic. I think that's fair. Everybody thinks about optimism, but when I think about trends, maybe I'm biased by sitting in Iowa and being at Drake and watching political candidates run all over our state for the last couple of months. I think the uncertainty associated with the election does bring an interesting thing to consider when you think about what's going to happen in the next year. If you look at the slowdown in business investment and you're wondering if you're going to allocate capital to a new investment in the future, it's going to be much different if Bernie Sanders ends up getting elected, or Elizabeth Warren, or Donald Trump. I'm going to wait to decide to make some of those decisions. And if I wait to make those decisions, if I'm allocating capital, then we see slower manufacturing growth, and that can create a little bit of a drag on that GDP growth that we all expect. Similarly, when you think about consumer confidence, which Darrell was exactly right. We've got a 70% consumers in terms of the GDP. It's been really interesting if you look at the consumer sentiment numbers. If you look at the Michigan survey, and you can go to their website and see this, there's a lot of studies on this. If you look at the difference between Republicans and Democrats and their view on the current sentiment, during the Obama administration, there was about a 20-point difference. So if the average was 90, Democrats were putting in about 100, and Republicans were putting in around 80. During the Trump administration, it's been a 40-point difference. So while we have strong consumer sentiment numbers, Republicans are almost 20 points higher in their sentiment than the average, and Democrats have been almost 20 points lower than the average on their sentiment. So if you see consumers starting to see a little bit of a slowdown in hiring and a little bit of a slowdown there, and they get nervous about, well, does tax policy change and all these things change, you can see them also stagnate a little bit in some of their spending. So when I was thinking of trends, it wasn't as much, I think we are going to be positive growth, and I'm not going to say we're going to have a recession or anything, but what might slow that down? Could consumers get nervous? Could business get nervous? And could the political climate feed into that? So I thought that was an interesting thing to consider as we have our discussion today.